Hello, and welcome to episode 22 of My Dog Will Eat My Face. In this episode, it's going to be somewhat of a continuation of episode 20, wherein I sort of described my thoughts with respect to why I am still here, why I'm still living my life. And the short summary of that episode was basically, I think it's because I'm so busy, for lack of, again, of a better word or a better phrase. It's by virtue of the fact that I'm constantly trying to live life. I'm constantly trying to pursue things, accomplishments, as well as happiness. And I think it's that drive that has kept me here longer than I well should have been with my condition. So, moving forward in this episode, I sort of want to examine the two options that lay before me and which option I've clearly gone with. To me, the options are life goes on versus life just ends. And I think that with my last podcast, I demonstrated that I have a strong drive to pursue life and to make it go on and not end. And I think that rings true with just a short look at the accomplishments that I have over the past few days. Probably over, actually, the past week, is what I should say. I've fought my former employer over my life insurance because they were doing something unscrupulous and technically illegal. And I won. I won that fight and got my way and got my life insurance the way I want it and got it continued at no cost to me. I've also secured other medical insurance since my employer benefits have vanished, and I've kept those benefits well within my budget. And that took a lot of fight and a lot of thinking and a lot of research and actually using state tools and swallowing some pride, I guess, so to speak, to use those state tools, but to use it for a better end, which is to be sure that I can get my medications and my health care at a reasonable cost for myself, and that I didn't just give up and say, oh well, I guess I don't have medical insurance anymore. Now I can probably say I do have medical insurance, and it's well within my budget. Also, I've lived life like it's going to happen. The next day is going to happen. Because so far, it seems to happen. I can't deny the fact that if the past is any indication of what might yet occur, it tells me that my life is probably going to go on to some extent. And maybe I'm not so different from all my listeners and even healthy people, because I just don't know when the end is going to come for me. There are some other big changes that I wish to share here in this podcast. And I'll kind of go through them one by one. There's two really big changes I want to touch on that each require its own segment, I think. And I think they're further indication that I've chosen this course of living my life in spite of the hardship, in spite of the doom and the gloom, and to move forward and to act as though, yes, the next day will come, even though we all know it very well may not. So, the first big change in my life was quite recent, and that was simply an appointment with my cardiologist. It was, of course, a virtual visit, the kind where you just stare at each other across a screen due to COVID, which I'm fine with. I don't want to go to a hospital or anywhere near a hospital in this day and age with what's going on. So we did a virtual appointment, and the whole point of the original appointment, honestly, was to extend and continue my medical assistance in death prescription, because it's something that I have filled twice. I would need it a third time because the previous 2 times I filled it, it is now expired. That is, the medication is expired, and so I would need another refill to use it to end my life. And that was the whole point of our call. But it deviated dramatically from that whole point. And I'll tell you how. I actually complained to my cardiologist about my medications that my hospice has me on, because it's been causing some rather troubling side effects that I absolutely hate, that I don't like. And I've addressed it all the way to the highest level of my hospice medical team. And the response back that I got was, well, there's nothing we can do. We don't want to change your medications because your heart is so fragile that we are reluctant to change your medications in any way whatsoever. So, with respect to the side effects, all we can say is tough it out. And that's literally what I got back from my hospice side. But when I complained of the same thing to my cardiologist, her response was entirely different. Her response was, well, I'm not afraid to mess with it. I'm a cardiologist. So, mess with it she did. And she decided to dramatically decrease one medication that I theorized was causing the problems, and increase other medications that were probably benign, and maintain, hopefully, the same end result that is pursued through these medications. So she discussed this right off the bat with me on this call. And was more than willing to change what I'm taking to actually improve my day-to-day life. She listened to me more than my hospice team. You would think that hospice is there meant to, bring someone comfort in the end of their life. To me, it seems it's just the opposite. That my regular cardiologist is the one that listened to me more and was the one to change my medication retinue to improve my quality of life for however long it could be, and to take that risk. So her approach was dramatically different. And I don't want to jinx it, but the side effects of the medication have waned a little bit already initially. And the intended effect has maintained the same. Now again, I don't want to jinx it, but it blows my mind that it was the cardiologist and not hospice who was willing to drive towards my comfort. And frankly, that increased comfort is what's going to make me want to live more life. As discomfort increases, why would I want to live? Why would I want to go on to the next day if I'm facing terrible side effects? So it really changed my outlook, quite literally, just from talking to my doctor. Again, this was supposed to be a discussion of doom and gloom about my MAID medication, but it turned out a talk about ways to mitigate my bad side effects. And that was only part of it. She also helped me in other ways. She helped me in mitigating other effects that I'm going through and other experiences that I'm having, not from medications, but just from the advancement of my disease. And she helped me in ways there to where, again, my hospice team would not touch me. And so it really was an appointment that I drove away from with more hope than what I went in with. I left that appointment with more desire for life than I had at the beginning. Because if I could mitigate these effects and these side effects of the medications, then my desire to live and to see the next day naturally is going to increase. And so it did. It did increase. We almost had to remind ourselves the initial point of the conversation. And in fact, at the end of the conversation, I said, well, don't refill it just yet. Just make it available if I request it down the road. Because I don't have any interest in refilling my MAID medication right now. And that's how he left it. It completely inverted my train of thought. It completely moved me around. Maybe she's trained to do that. Maybe that's what she's trying to do when she's dealing with people that are facing MAID medication. But if so, I don't care. It's a good effort, and it did work, and I'm glad it worked, because the outcome was far better than I would have ever have expected. And it changed my drive dramatically in that one call to continue to live my life. And it came from the strangest place, from what I thought was going to be a doom and gloom call. Instead, it turned into a place where I actually got new hope and a new drive and a new desire to live the next day. So, another area where there's been a big shift for me honestly goes back to the terrible news that I shared not too long ago, a couple months ago, where I did share that my best friend, my companion for my life, my dog, the title even of this podcast, had passed away. And that truly did shatter me. Beyond words. It has shattered me beyond words. Still, I would say there's not a day that goes by where I don't cry about it. I was deeply affected by that, clearly, and still am. However, the pain has subsided a little bit as time has moved on. And after a lot of thinking and discussing with friends and family, a lot of analysis on my part, I've come to a new conclusion. And that is, I'm willing to adopt a new puppy, a new dog. Now, that's a huge frickin' decision. I think adoption is always a huge decision. But especially on the coattails of mourning the loss of a dog who meant everything to me. It is a profound decision to make. Absolutely profound. And it's with the understanding that there's no way I'm going to be able to replace my dog that passed. That will never happen. And I don't want it to. I think he's irreplaceable. But what it does open me up to is the ability to share my love and give my love to another worthy being that is just as alone and needs someone to care for them just as much as any one of us does. And that's why I feel like I can make that decision to move forward and to put my neck out there and seek out a new dog to adopt and call my own once again. Now, as I've shared already, I talked to a lot of friends and family about it. For the most part, it's been consensus that it's a good idea, that it will fill a void in my life. It won't replace my old dog. It'll give me someone new to love and to care for. And that's deeply something that I need. And I agree with that. But there have been disagreements at a few points within this discussion. The most pointed. Is that the right word? Pointed? How about this? The most severe disagreement. There we go. The most severe disagreement came actually from my ex, who owned my previous dog with me, where my ex said, "How are you going to walk him?" Not him being my ex, him being the dog. He's assuming it's a boy. "How are you going to walk this dog? How are you going to walk him? You don't have the ability to take care of a dog now. You're physically declining. You're dying. How cruel is it to adopt a dog now, get it used to a life with you, and then in less than a year croak and have it get shuffled again through the system again? That's just terrible. That's mean. How can you do that to someone?" Those were the words pretty much out of my ex's mouth. And they're actually good points. How can I do this now, when I know for a fact that I'm dying? How can I put a dog through that potential threat? Well, my answer to that is that the benefit to both me and the dog outweigh the risk of me dying and the dog having to find yet another home in my passing. And there are things I can do today to ensure that he does find another home in my passing. I'm not powerless in this. I have sought out family that I know will adopt him. And I also have friends that I know will adopt him. Right now, my problem is picking which ones I want to go with because I have multiple volunteers of people who would be gladly adopt a dog in my passing. And I have to pick one, so to speak, to put it in the will. So I can do things and I can take measures to mitigate the effect it will have on that pooch so it doesn't end up in another shelter. Obviously, at least I can do that. And the amount of love and the amount of companionship and the good life that would be shared between us before my passing, I do think outweighs the bad of that being lost. I think dogs are resilient. They're very stoic. But I do see them as people, and they do need to be taken care of if you pass. And so I'm trying to take the appropriate measures to do just that. But what are my alternatives anyway? Just to sit alone? Even though I love dogs, even though I could love on a new dog and bring it joy and happiness, to not share that with a dog ever again because tomorrow or the month after or the month after that or the month after that I might expire. As my ex would have it, the solution is to do absolutely nothing and to live alone. And to not engage in the bold experiment of adopting a new being. Well, actually, what my ex suggested was to try pursuing more of the human cooperation and human coexistence. I said, don't you think I've tried that? Humans are the worst. I'm sorry, but they are. Oh, the humans can just be a huge disappointment. This is why people adopt pets and adopt dogs in particular. It's because of their good human qualities and their seemingly abundant ability to leave the garbage human qualities off to the side. That's why people adopt them. So that's what I'm going to go for. And I'm going to live my life like the rest of you. Like there is a tomorrow. Like there is time. Like I have something to live for. I'm not going to deprive myself of love with another being just out of the fear of what's going to happen when I expire. And truthfully, I don't even know how that's any different with a human. If anything, it's worse with a human, whereas dogs are more robust. But anyway, this has been another big change, and I think it's a change where I'm pursuing life, and I'm fighting forward to live my life as best as I can with whatever time I have left. And I'm not forsaking it. I mean, death will come, sure enough. It does for all of us. And it usually comes totally unannounced, even if you think you know everything. I just can't sit idle and wait for it. I think that's a far worse scenario. So I fought my ex on that for what it's worth, but left with basically a different opinion. And I'm still going to try to pursue to adopt an animal, to adopt a new dog. In fact, this weekend I have an initial home inspection and visit with a dog that I've been trying to adopt that caught my eye. So, dear listeners, wish me luck with that. Even though by the time this podcast is published, it will already have happened. So, I don't know. Wish me luck that they'll bring only good news on Monday or Tuesday. Or Wednesday. I don't know. I don't know how that's all going to work. But I'm trying. I'm trying to move forward, and I'm trying to live my life. And I'm not just going to sit idle. Much like how I fought my former employer. Much how I pursued health insurance. Much like how I gained my other gains recently in life. I'm not going to just give up. I'm going to fight for it. And if I fail, I fail. But if I win big. I think it was Nietzsche who said, you should fight your enemies. You should wage your war. A war for your opinions. And if your opinion is defeated, then let your honesty still cry triumph over that. And that's what I'll go with. So that's more big news. And I do hope that my listeners wish me luck. So these changes in my life are actually pretty big. I don't think any of them are small. When I recently met with my social worker, who I meet with every other week, he pointed out that I was more smiles and happier than he'd seen me in a long, long time. And I really think it is that adjustment in how I view the world, my place in it, and have hope, and have a drive to live my life, despite the odds best set against it. Because frankly, I get bored with just sitting around and expecting the worst case scenario. I am going to take Nietzsche's advice. I am going to wage my war. I am going to fight my enemies. I am going to try to fight for my life. And if I fail at certain things, my honesty will still cry triumph over that. I don't know what else to do. I'm certainly not going to want to fall back into the annals of time as just a bitter, lonely, squashed of a person who's given up on all hopes and dreams. And even simple things like trying to remedy bad side effects. Maybe I'm driven more so because I did fight so much lately, and I won so much. Fighting my former employer, as I said. Fighting to get new health insurance. Sucking in what stupid pride might get in the way to get assistance from the state where I need it. And getting to a much better point in my life than where I was previously. Because that's already happened. Maybe it just took those victories to make me drive forward even more so. And to want to move on, to live the next day, and to see it, and to fight for it. And also to not be alone. Because, oh my gosh, I've certainly tried the human aspect. And to me, it's just not as rewarding. What can I say? I'm one of those people. That's fine. I'm just one of those people. And so that's why I'm going to try to, again, adopt a dog. And it's not like I'm totally isolated either. I still have friends. I still have family. I'm not a loner. I mean, just this week I was exchanging emails with the governor of my state, who I'm on a first name basis with. So, I'm not isolated by any means. But I wanted to pursue more, and to pursue the adoption, and to pursue a better physical life for myself here and now, to make me want to see the next day. And I think that's exactly what I'm driving towards, is to see the next day. And with that, I think that's where I'm going to close off this week's rather short podcast. I give my apologies. Some people like them short, some people like them long. Last week's was long, so this week's is short. So that's how I'll kind of do it. But I want to give my thanks to everyone who did listen and did follow through it. Be sure to follow the podcast and to turn on notifications so you're notified of future podcasts. And if you really, really want to support the podcast, because I'll tell you, it's not free to me to do this. Everyone thinks it is. It's not. It takes time out of my day when I could be doing a lot of other stuff that's beneficial for me. And it takes effort, and it takes energy. So it's not just like willy-nilly and as free as can be. So if you want to support this podcast, I encourage you to go to patreon.com/mydogwilleatmyface. And I will put the link again in the description. And also, if you do join, there are some cool perks, by the way. You do get some behind-the-scenes looks. You get some production value to where you get to drive insight into what is discussed on the podcast, what topics you would like to cover. And even beyond that, there's one ultimate benefit called Archaeology with Your Podcaster. And what that is I'm actually quite the relics collector. I collect a lot of different relics and antiquities. And through that, I hope to share some insight into some of the items that I collect and give you the lowdown as to what those are and share some of the facts and figures of them. So if you're a history geek, that might be something to consider. But above all, if you've just listened to the podcast and you're listening now, that is the most you can give. And for that, I do sincerely thank you by the bottom of my heart. I truly do appreciate all those who just listen. And I appreciate your time more than anything. So with that, I will talk to you next week. And ciao for now.